Yo, just adjust some things right quick. It's been a long day. Okay, I got everything I wanted. So you guys know how this goes. Normally I just stream and I kind of treat it like a blog or a vlog, whatever y'all want to call it. And we got mad information today about Season of Discovery Phase 3. I'm going to focus mainly on the Warlock stuff. I'll probably touch on other class stuff because some of the stuff does look pretty cool, but mainly Warlock stuff because that's what I play. That's what we're doing. Warlock tanking is what I am. So let's start with the data mined class slash rune changes, and then we're gonna progress into like things that were kind of, not, I won't say fully revealed or officially revealed, but data mine stuff. It's always fun to look at data mine stuff. All right, so we're gonna just go ahead and go to the Warlock, even though, like I said, some of this other stuff I saw is pretty dope. But let's start with the Warlock changes. Here we are. Boom. So this is just gonna show a couple aura effect changes for a lot of classes and classes for a lot of talents and passives and stuff like that. And then we're gonna go deeper for some of the stuff and really look at the spell effects, and then we'll change over and go into like runes and shit like that. So as you can see here, this is all of the Warlock stuff. And you see a lot of aura changes for some of the talents. Nightfall got an aura change, duration change from minus 1 ms to 0 ms. Don't really know what that means. I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. I'll probably look it up a little bit later and figure it out. But see that Nightfall got an aura change. Probably the biggest thing here is the Lake of Fire nerf. So if you've never played Warlock, Lake of Fire was one of the chest runes that when you drop Rain of Fire, it left a pool on, not a pool, but like the consecration effect on the ground, right? It's like the exact same thing as consecration. And when enemies stood in it, they take 40% increased damage, fire damage, from the Warlock and their pet. And you only need to channel Rain of Fire for one tick for it to leave the Rain of Fire or Lake of Fire effect on the ground. So what Warlocks would do is use like a rank 1 Rain of Fire, because it costs the least amount of mana, get one tick of it, and then they would still have the 40% effect. Now, with the changes, you have to channel Rain of Fire for the full duration. I'm going to highlight it right here. The full duration. And then increases all of your fire damage that you and your pet deal by 50% instead of 40%. I'm going to be honest with y'all. This is trash. This is horrible. Like, I'm sure some Warlocks are going to be able to make use of it, but this isn't a good change. And I'm saying that because I'm biased. Obviously, I play a Warlock, but it probably was a good change because you got a really strong and powerful boost for very minimal effort and mana cost. So I get Blizzard kind of wanted to rein that in, but having to chain your Rain of Fire for the full duration to get the effect is kind of wild. Like there would have been other ways that to bring this rune in line that didn't make it feel so terrible, to be quite honest, because Rain of Fire isn't the most damage that a Warlock can do in AoE. Hellfire is. So generally speaking, if you wanted to, whether you were single target or AoE, I'll just use AoE, but if you went to AoE, you would get one tick of Rain of Fire, and then you would get close enough for Hellfire to be used, and you would just use Hellfire after obviously dotting some things up, right? And for a single target, you would drop Rain of Fire to get the Lake of Fire proc, or effect, I should say, then cast your Immolate, and then you would go into your incinerate spam, and then once you have the rain of fire and the incinerate buff, you can cast a super strong chaos bolt. Right, simple, very simple TLDR, warlock rotation. And I'm guessing, like I said, Blizzard just thought that that was kind of too easy for such a high damage combo, so they had to rein it in. But this feels bad. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even play DPS Warlock. I don't. I really don't. I just mainly tank, and I can already tell you that this just looks and probably feels horrible. But I will say there's a silver lining here. The silver lining is it looks like they're getting some. They're giving some new aura effects for Rain of Fire. It doesn't really say what they're doing. It just says modifies damage and healing, but it doesn't. It didn't get like a value change. It didn't get like what we saw here. So I don't know. I don't know if it means that Rain of Fire is gonna now just do giga damage. This looks like the different ranks of Rain of Fire, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, rank 4. What I'm thinking is that this Lake of Fire effect is applying to all of the ranks of Rain of Fire. That's what it looks like to me. I don't know that for sure. Just kind of just spitballing there. I don't know, but that's what it looks like. Um, Something I am excited about though is the new rune for Helms. It's called Vengeance, and when activated, it gives you 30% um, increase to your max health. This is basically like Survival Instincts or Last Stand. Basically, it's on a. I clicked it before, but this ability is on a 3 minute cooldown, and it kind of just solves one of the problems that Warlock really had, and that's just a lack of defensive cooldowns. It's just a reality situation. And Warlocks don't really have any defensive CDs. It kind of is just meta. Meta is our defense, really. Meta and a lot of health. So now, yeah, you could like use Dance of the Wicked and Demonic Grace and Demonic Tactics to kind of fuel a lot of passive avoidance, right? Like I think when I do that combo, I get like somewhere around like 20 to 25, depending on like my procs and stat setup. Like I get like about on average 20% increased dodge chance, which is not a little bit, right? So, but other than fishing for demonic, not demonic, fishing for Dance of the Wicked crits, you're really just kind of stuck out there with no way to really defend yourself should a boss enter like an enraged effect phase, or a big hit is about to come. There's really no defense for it. So Vengeance is actually going to help us in the long run. I'll read the tooltip here real quick. When activated, this ability grants you or temporarily grants you a 30% increase to your max health for 20 seconds. After the effect expires, this health is lost. Additionally, while in Metamorphosis, Vengeance causes your wings to give you the slow fall effect, which is kind of interesting. Like, that's kind of weird. But these are the changes for so far that we've seen data mined for phase 3. And like I said, it sucks to see Lake of Fire be changed so much. That really just kind of sucks to me. But, you know, it is what it is. It sounds like we got offspring. Yes, buddy. Okay. I'm going to put the offspring away, and then we're going to continue our delving down the thing. All right, we back. That was crazy. Kids, I tell you, the point of me streaming at night is so I'm not interrupted. But clearly, children have other plans. So that's really it for the initial. This was the initial data mining, right? This is the initial data mining that we saw for the put up my logo, the Warlock. So, R.I.P. to Lake of Fire, but hello to Vengeance. Happy to see you. And who knows? I could just be dooming, right? Like the Lake of Fire change might not be that bad. They might revert it. They might buff Rain of Fire just to make it super. Like there's a lot of things that could happen. So I don't want to doom on it too much, but face value, it just looks kind of terrible. To be quite honest with you, looks really terrible. Moving on. Now let's go to the talents. I think talents and rune setups are pretty important this upcoming phase because, as you know, we're getting 10 extra talent points, so it kind of opens up a lot of options for us. So I still have it in phase 2. Let me actually switch to phase 3, which I guess they have labeled as current, which I guess is fair. It's basically phase 3. And as we mentioned before, I don't think Lake of Fire is going to be it, to be honest with you. I think for tank warlocks, it's a toss-up. You can use Master Channeler for safer survivability, which would probably be the go-to. You can use Demonic Tactics for more crit, just for more crit fishing, especially since if you're a Destro, you're running Ruin. More crit just means more damage. More damage and more threat. Everyone likes that. Cool. But I think probably, at least for like the first week, first 2 lockouts, first whatever have you, it'll be Master Channeler just for safety. We don't know how hard these bosses are going to hit. One would assume that they would be a little bit more threatening to the tank because instead of being a 10-man, like 10-mans are pretty much difficulty capped. You know what I mean? Like they can only hit so hard because it's 10-man. You don't have all the classes available to you, or at least a lot of times you don't. There's a higher chance that you don't. And you're more often than not running 2 healers. So it's only but so much 2 healers can do. It's only but so fast 6 DPS can, get a boss down. So things are kind of really capped in a 10-man. But in 20-man, might be different because you have a lot more resources, a lot more people to help out, a lot more things to kind of circumvent the situation. So damage has to go up in a 20-man. That's just kind of math, right? So I think Master Channeler is going to be warranted in the first couple of lockouts, and then people might switch over to Demonic Tactics. Hell, people might switch back to Lake of Fire if there's, ample opportunity for us to get off Lake of Fire. Perhaps you're running Intensity and you're in a group with a Paladin who's running Concentration Aura, and you can just really kind of get off that Lake of Fire. So who knows? But I think Master Channeler is probably going to be the go-to here. Helms. Helms, these are the data mine runes we have. Pandemic was actually announced, but Backdraft and Vengeance were data mined, right? So I'm just going to talk for the sake of conversation, like these things have been announced, right? I want to be clear, depending on the way somebody might have, depending on when they start this video, I want to be clear. These are data mined runes. Except for Pandemic. Pandemic was announced, but Backdraft and Vengeance are data mined. It's not official yet. There's a high chance that they are in the game because I don't really see them changing runes right now when we're only like not less than a week, but about a week away. So I don't really see them changing too much. But these are data mined. They're still not an official word until someone actually finds the rune and equips it. That's when you'll probably know things are official. But I'm going to talk about it like it's official. And I'm going to be honest with you. There really isn't a use for Backdraft for meta Warlock tanks anyway. So Conflict giving 30% spellcasting haste is great. Problem is our primary spender is Searing Pain, and that's an instant cast. Spell haste doesn't really do anything for that. Right now in vanilla, dots aren't affected by haste. So unless there's a change, unless I'm mistaken, dots, you don't get more ticks from haste because haste isn't a real stat. In vanilla anyway. So there's not really much Backdraft can do. And on top of all that, you have to get Conflagrate, and most Warlock tanks aren't probably speccing into Conflagrate. So I think Vengeance is the safer defensive pick, and Pandemic is definitely the better or the more consistent offensive pick here. Having Your Corruption, your Curse of Agony, your Immolate, all being able to be crit is great. Is great. It's great for a Warlock tank. So, especially because more often than not, we have a lot of spell crit. So, or we can get up there with a lot of spell crit. So, I think Pandemic is definitely a good offensive choice. Vengeance is a good defensive choice. So, it's up to you what you want to pick. I would probably not recommend Backdraft, to be honest. For the wrist slot, this is the other new rune area. So the Felguard was announced, so that one is official. Immolation Aura and Unstable Affliction are data mined, so these are not official. Even though, like I said before, at this point, with as much time as we got left for Phase 2, I feel like these things are probably in the game. They're not going to change much, right? And I'll say these two are both good. The problem with Unstable Affliction is you can only either have Unstable Affliction or Immolate on a target, and Meta Warlocks tend to like fire damage. We tend to stack. We tend to have a lot of items that have plus fire damage on it. Like the Blood Moon Ring is plus fire damage on it, right? So Unstable Affliction being a shadow dot, we probably won't pick this over using Immolate. So even though it probably does really good damage, it's not. It doesn't fit into our fire damage style. Like it won't scale with Ember Storm. It won't scale with plus fire spell damage. So it's probably not the best pick. The Felguard is an interesting pick because in the video they had said it can either tank or do a lot of damage. So it's kind of like an improvement on both the Succubus and the Voidwalker, because the Voidwalker was the tank pet, Succubus was the high melee pet. So it's kind of like a combination / improvement on them both. There's a lot of questions that I have in regards to the Felguard, and actually we can kind of select it and we'll talk about it. So I think the immediate question is, how does Felguard work with Master Demonologist? Master Demonologist only works with the demons that were available in vanilla, so the Imp, the Voidwalker, the Succubus, and the Fel Hunter. So unless they do a talent increase, what they could just add, revamp the talent to include the Felguard. That's not a hard thing. They did the same thing with Druids, right? They changed the Feral Swiftness talent to, instead of giving movement speed only for outdoors, now it just gives you movement speed in cat form regardless. So they could change it. They could simply just add Felguard and it'll get a small bonus in Master Demonologist, right? Same thing with Demonic Sacrifice. Like there's no Felguard version of this, so sacrificing a Felguard would we would have to see what it does. There is a way to look up and see kind of what the Felguard is maybe planned to do, and that's by selecting it and kind of selecting the or searching for it. Let me see if I can, because I don't want to lose this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and we're going to go here and we're going to actually look at the Summon Felguard like spell in Wowhead and see what it's flagged for. I thought it'd be the first thing up there, to be honest with you. There it is. All right, so here we have the Summon Felguard, and we can see what it's modified by. So it's modified by Fel Domination, which is obvious, like instant, not an instant cast, but a very shortened cast on your Summon Demon. It's modified by Master Summoner, which is another demonology talent. It's modified by the Never Ending Vessel, so you can use the Never Ending Vessel and then use Summon Felguard. And then we have a couple of other talent modifiers: Fel Energy, Fel Stamina, Touch of Shadow, and Burning Wish. Now, I know Burning Wish is the effect that you get when you sacrifice the Imp, when you use Demonic Sacrifice on the Imp. And Touch of Shadow is the effect that you get when you sacrifice the Succubus. So this is like I think this is like a plus 15% fire increase. It's not going to show because I'm in full screen. Yeah, this is the effect that you get when you sacrifice the Imp. I don't know why it's listing all the demons, because it's definitely just an Imp unless I'm mistaken. We can go back. Yeah, Imp increased by fire damage by 15%. Succubus increased shadow damage. So it seems like, unless I'm mistaken, it seems like the Felguard is going to give both the plus 15 fire and shadow damage, which is going to be kind of crazy for demonology. Not really for tanking. I would say it's good for tanking if you're looking for DPS gains, definitely, but then you lose Soul Link. So I don't know how much you're going to really sacrifice your pet while you're tanking. But I'm excited for the Felguard regardless, because it seems to be the damage increase rune on this slot. And when you're soul linking a Felguard, the Felguard doesn't really have a high chance to die, right? He's not going to die too much. He has a lot of health. He's pretty bulky, so you don't really have to worry about the Felguard just dying. Whereas like the Imp is not really a good choice for soul linking, right? Like the Fel Hunter, not really the greatest choice for soul linking, but the Void Walker kinda is because he's bulky. So Felguard I would put in that same category. The next one obviously is another one that I'm really excited for is Immolation Aura. So if this works like Immolation Aura that I know from like retail or even like earlier versions of Demonology Warlocks and like Kata or even in Wrath, right? This will just give you a fire aura that, according to the tooltip, will reduce all magic damage taken, and that's like a demon hunter thing. That's like a demon hunter thing. They have a talent that when they have Immolation Aura active, it reduces all magic damage taken, and it says last until cancel. So this is just a pulsing AoE aura that you just have on you, and it will just reduce your magic damage taken. That's pretty dope. I would imagine that last until cancel thing is probably not going to make it into the game. They're probably going to give it like a super short cooldown, so it becomes like a maintenance buff versus like a big cooldown, right? But either way, even if it's just a passive aura or it's just like a super short maintenance buff, kind of like how Demon Hunters have it, I'm fine with that. 10% reduced magic damage is really strong, especially on a tank that's boasting high armor and high health. Like it's just increasing your effective health pool even more. So I'm not mad at either of these two options for meta tanking, Immolation or Felguard. I think this is situational. I think if you're AoE tanking or you're really just getting slapped by magic damage, like a Dragon Breath is really hurting you, or there's a boss in Sunken Temple that's just really doing a lot of magic, an ability that's doing a lot of magic damage, you can throw in Immolation Aura. But the DPS increase is probably going to be Felguard, and I'm interested to see more how the Felguard reacts with certain other talents. So I'm going to pick the Felguard. And then the other talents are just kind of things that we know, right? Like we know Need Metamorphosis, that's never going to change. Demonic Knowledge seems to be the one to pick. If you need a defensive setup, you pick Dance the Wicked, but we're picking Demonic Knowledge. The leg rune, I kind of run support Warlock, so I don't run Incinerate anymore, and I only use Demonic Grace really on like when I'm solo tanking like Menagerie. That's the only real time I use Demonic Grace, but other than that, I'm just using Demonic Pact. So there you go. And then Waste, I'm using Grimoire Synergy because I got Giga buffed, easy clap. And this is kind of what your rune setup is probably going to look like when you're tanking Sunken Temple. Now, when it comes to talents, I feel like there's a couple of avenues you can definitely take. I'll just get this out the way quick. I feel like Affliction is still kind of the weaker of the three specs to use, especially going into a new raid where the damage profile is going to be higher. We don't know the mechanics just yet. I'm going to, like this, obviously, if depending on how coordinated your guild is, how strong your healers are, how strong your raid group as a whole is, it's going to change how you play. Me, I like to err on the side of caution. I'm going to respect into Demonology to get my soul link, but I'll show you what a talent build that I would use looks like real quick. So I'm definitely maxing out Demonic Embrace, and I'm using Improved Health Stones. I'm skipping Improved Imp, even though it does have the Improved Blood Pact on it, only because we're not really going to be using the Imp, and because when you take Master Demonologist, having the Imp out when you have max talent points reduces your threat by 20%. You really don't want that. I wish they would change that for meta tanks. I really wish they would just make it increase your threat by 20% if you're in meta form, but they haven't, unfortunately. But anyway, yeah, I take Demonic Embrace, 2 in Health Stone. We're going to skip Improved Imp. But if you, like, it's hard to justify because if you really want Demonic Pact, just have somebody else. Put yourself in a group with another Warlock with it. You really don't want 20% threat reduction. Even though meta Warlocks do a lot of single target threat, like you just don't want that. Moving on though. So normally what I would do is I would put like 3. This is a phase 3 thing. I would put like 3 in Felt Intellect. I would put 3 in Fel Stamina, and that would leave me enough points to get Improved Syad, because before the Felguard came into the picture, the best melee pet, or the pet that did the most damage for Demonology Warlocks would be the Succubus, because you'll get the Improved Syad talent, and while she's out in Master Demonologist, she just increases all your damage done by 10% when you max it out. So that's where I would have left it, but because we're going to be using the Felguard, I don't really see a reason to put talents into Improved Syad. So I'm gonna forego that one. You could argue that this might be a thing when you're not using improved Felgar, like if you're using Immolation Aura in that rune slot and you want to use the Succubus as the next best pet, you could say that. But I feel like if you're not using the Felgar and using Immolation Aura, you're probably just going to use the Voidwalker and get your free 10% damage reduction. Call it a day. So either way you look at it, I don't think you're going to use improved Sayada anymore. So I think we can kind of allocate those talent points elsewhere, but we're going to keep moving down the tree. So we have Fel Domination. I would say just because you're using Soul Link, I think, and because the Felgar is a melee attacker, I would say the better allocation of the talent points is Fel Stamina. Increasing your pet's health means that they can take more hits when you're sharing it with Soul Link. So I think that's the better option. We're going to get Master Summoner. We're going to max out on Holy Power to max out all of our pets' melee abilities. We're going to get Demonic Sacrifice because we need it to get to Soul Link. And we're definitely going to put all 5 talent points into Subjugate Demon because it's like literally the most broken talent. I don't know why people always kind of like shit on this talent. It's a really strong... I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I was trolling. Improved Subjugate Demon is literally the most useless talent I've ever seen in my life. Like, I have no idea why this is a thing. Now, one could argue that in Season of Discovery, improved Subjugate Demon will increase your chances on landing Subjugate Demon on a opposing Meta Warlock in PvP. But in all reality, you're probably just going to banish them, right? Like, you're just going to banish them. So this really is just like a complete dog talent. I don't understand why this is a thing. We're going to get improved Firestone because we're going to get another rank of Firestone. So it might outweigh the current BIS offhand that we have until we get another offhand. So we're going to take improved Firestone just to get the increased fire damage bonus and Firestone effect. So that's cool. And then we're going to get Master Demonologist. And the last talent point will go into Soul Link. Now, this is 32, right? And I feel like there is some flexibility here. Like you don't have to go 3 out of 5. You can 5 out of 5. You can go 4 out of 5 and really just put 31 in here, and then that'll save you some talent points, right? Like it all depends on how much damage you're taking, how often your demon is dying. Like if it's always in danger, if you're always calling for someone to heal it, then yeah, you kind of got to gauge it there. But with 20 man, there being more healers, it's not just 2 healers anymore, it's more healers. Your demon might be a little bit safer, especially if healers understand that, all right, the demon is really fueling my defense. So I think it's probably safe to use 4 out of 5, but I'm going to use 5 out of 5 just in case, and then we'll see where we're going there. Now that we have 9 talent points left, there's a couple avenues you could definitely take. Option number 1 is you can go straight into the Affliction tree and get 5 out of 5 corruption. And make your corruption instant and just gives you that much more mobility, give you that much more damage upkeep, all that good stuff, right? And then you can put the last 2 talent points in improve life tap, getting more mana for your life tap, which is always good, which means less time you have to life tap. This is great. And the last 2 talent points you can put in suppression to make sure your affliction talents are actually hitting. Your taunts are hitting, your corruptions are hitting, your curse of agonies are hitting, all that good stuff. This is like a real simplistic style, or not style, but talent setup for your sub talents, right? You could do this. You could also go into the destruction tree and reduce the mana cost of all your destruction spells by 5%, namely really your Searing Pain, right? Reducing your Searing Pain cost by 5% it does save you mana. So in a roundabout way, it does mean less life tapping because you're going to be spending 5% less mana on your main spender ability. So it does mean less life tapping. It's just not improved life tap, if you catch my drift. You could do this. And to be quite honest with you, I still think you take these remaining 4 talent points, or if you want to just do that and go 4 out of 5, the remaining 5 talent points you can definitely put into improved corruption to get the instant corruption. Now, what this does is you won't get Bane, right? So your Immolate won't have that half a second time off on it. But to be quite honest, I feel like it's either have a faster cast time on Immolate and still have to deal with the cast time on corruption, or have an instant corruption and have a little bit longer cast time on Immolate. I think this is the lesser of the evils. So I think if you're going to go with the 4 out of 5 setup and Fel Stamina and you decide to go into the Destruction Tree and save some mana with Cataclysm, then you can definitely go here. This is one way you could do it, right? And this is just like a standard demonology tree. This is kind of what I would do. This is probably what I'm going to do once I'm 50 and once I'm ready to raid. And I want to make sure that not this though. I would definitely go. Let me take these points out of Cataclysm. I'll definitely do improve life tap. Improve life tap, and maybe one in suppression, and then the remaining two in improve life drain. If things are really slapping me, I can probably put these last two in to improve curse of weakness. But to me, improved curse of weakness is kind of a weak talent to me, to be quite honest with you. Like, it's one talent point for like 6%, but it's curse of weakness. Like, I don't know. It's kind of a weaker talent point, but it still will reduce your physical damage taken. So it is what it is there. I think you just probably, since we're like kind of maining Master Channeler now, even though this is a weak talent too, because like in the beginning in phase 1 where we're level 25, Drain Life was great. And this talent only increased the base damage of Drain Life. It doesn't scale, but at level 25, even at base, when spell power levels were really, really low, this was a really good talent. But now that we're a little bit higher, we're hit 50, we're 10 levels away from maximum. We have a lot more spell power now. Like, I think fully buff when everything's procced and up. But like when my 4 set is procced, not my 4 set, my 3 set from normal is procced, I have like 410 spell power now. So it's like, yeah, I don't really know. But I think if just for a little bit more survivability, improved Drain Life is definitely not going to hurt you. You can even go 3 out of 5. You don't even have to put that 1% in there. There seems to be a lot of hit gear coming from not just Nomergon, but even like looking at the Sunken Temple data mine gear. It seems to be a lot of hit gear, so hit might not really be an issue. So 3 out of 5 in improved Drain Life might be the move to take. I've seen even some people say, I don't even need an improved life tap. I mean, we've been playing without it for this long. We might as well just full send into our improved Drain Life. But we'll see. I'm not mad at either or. This is fine. This will maximize the potential of Master Channeler. This will make your corruption instant. This is all fine. But this is kind of like the demonology setup I would use. Some variation. Well, this definitely. This talent build definitely, and some variation of affliction talents. I probably wouldn't really go into the destruction tree. One thing about this build is that it does lose some key things in the destruction tree for damage, namely Ruin. Ruin is, like I've said before, Ruin to me is like one of the most powerful talents in all of vanilla because it gives you a 100% critical strike damage bonus for the cost of 1 talent point. I think I made the comparison before that if you compare it to like a rogue's lethality talent, it costs them 3 talent points to get 30% increased damage. We get 1%. It costs us 1 talent point to get 100%. So Ruin is definitely going to be a big loss. Devastation, increasing your destruction crit chance by 5% is going to be a big loss. Not having Machine Gun Imp is going to be a big loss. If Sunken Temple happens to have a lot of trash, not having Intensity is going to be a big loss. So there's a lot of things going on here, but I'm actually going to look at a destruction tree right now. So we're going to actually clear this out. We're going to go into a destruction tree. So destruction is probably pretty standard. Definitely get Cataclysm. I'm going to get the Bane for the shorter immolate. We're going to get Improved Imp Bolt for Machine Gun Imp. We're going to get that. And generally speaking, I like to run Intensity and Nomer because there seems to be a lot of trash. And what I used to do was I would do this. This was my phase 1 setup. I would do 3 out of 5 Searing Pain, get Ruin, skip Destructive Reach, and get Intensity because there's a lot of just trash in Nomer, and when I'm solo tanking, I'm the only tank, so I want to make sure that I'm getting little pushback on my Hellfire as possible, especially in pugs where there wasn't a paladin with me. So Intensity gets a lot of value, and even from a DPS standpoint, it's like, all right, if you need the 2 talent points to feed Intensity, where are you taking it from? You're not taking any points from Ruin. That's a fact. Not even going to happen. You're definitely not taking any points from Improved Firebolt. This talent alone, I was simming it. It was like worth like 90 DPS per talent point. Like this talent alone is crazy when combined with the improved imp which I was running. So this talent point was, you were damn sure wasn't taking no talent points out of this. And yeah, it was the next point was take it out of Improved Searing Pain. Yes, I lose some crit for my Searing Pain, but it wasn't a big cost for the effect of having Intensity. We'll say that. But now that we have more talent points, we can afford to get that improved Searing Pain, and then we can max out Ember Storm, and we can put some points into improved Immolate. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm going to keep it 1,000. Keep it a stack, whatever they want to call it. if you're not gonna use Conflagrate, I don't see a point to using Improved Immolate. I'm not saying it's not a DPS increase, even though it only increases the initial damage of Improved Immolate. It doesn't increase the ticking damage. If you're not getting Conflagrate, to me, there's really no point in using and putting your talent points in Improved Immolate. I feel like these points can go into Destructive Reach, and then you can move on out this tree. That's how I feel. I don't even think Shadow Burn is a button. Pyroclasm, I tested Pyroclasm one time. One time. I did a couple of runs through Armory, right? And Pyroclasm just was not stunning things to make it worth it for me. So I'll say this right here. I think this is the build. This is the enough talent points that you're going to allot to Destruction. Again, if you're not using Conflagrate, to me, there's no point to getting Improved Immolate. But you want to get enough talent points so you can get Ember Storm to increase your fire damage by 10%, right? Because this Ember Storm should, quote unquote, should scale with all of your fire abilities and your Immolation Aura rune. So keep that in mind. And then after the Destruction tree, we can move on to the Demonology tree, and then we have 9 talent points left over, so we can still pick up Demonic Embrace, fully improved Imp, and we can go anywhere. We can go with this floating talent point. You can go into improved Healthstone. You can go into 1 point into Fell Intellect to give your Imp more mana. You can go into Suppression to give your Taunt and your Corruption and your Curse of Agony increase hit chance. And same thing with Drain Life too. So there's a couple of avenues for this last floating talent point, but I think the main point I'm trying to get at is, for survivability's sake, once you have Ember Storm and let's say you're trying to beef yourself up, I think getting Demonic Embrace and getting improved Imp is going to be worth it, because you're going to have all of the DPS talents, or most of the DPS talents, from Destruction. So you got the max value there, or near max value, and now you need survivability, which is what tanks care about. So these 2 talent points to me are going to be worth it. Now you could forego this. You could skip and say, you know what, I'm good once you have enough gear, or maybe you say my healers are good, I don't even need the stamina increases, whatever. Let's say you take these points out of Demonic Embrace and you still want improved Blood Pact and improved Fireball, right? You can take those 6 points and you can go right here. Now you have improved Corruption, you have Machine Gun Imp combo, and you have all of the fire DPS spells or talents associated with Destruction. So this is another move, and you don't even have to take Suppression. You can go into Improved Life tab, you can go 1 point into Drain Life, you can do whatever you want with this floating talent point. More often than not, people are probably going to go Improved Life tab, because like I said, there seems to be a lot of hit gear coming from Sunken Temple, but if you need that extra boost, you probably go into Suppression, but this is probably what they're going to do. But yeah, this is like a full DPS setup, and this will probably emerge at some point once we figure out, how to really do Sunken Temple, once Sunken Temple's in full swing and people are just not fearing them, not fearing for their life because they don't have the 15% increased health from Demonic Embrace. I always love Demonic Embrace. Like, I always just like feeling tanky, because that's why I play tank, right? So that's kind of what it is, but you could definitely run this and be A-okay. Your threat's going to be great. You're going to have max improved Searing Pain. You're going to have Destructive Reach. You're going to have Ember Storm. You're going to have all of the nice talents, plus maxed out improved Imp, plus instant Corruption, right? So I think the 6-3-32 setup is going to emerge. There are going to be people who use Conflagrate. I'm not a big fan of the spell, especially since it removes Immolate if you're not running the Shadow Flame rune on your feet, and you're probably not going to run Shadow Flame because Demonic Knowledge gives way too much spell power. So I don't see Conflagrate being really in the cards for me in the future, but some people will run it. Some people will definitely run it. Some people run 31 out of 31 right now. So that's it for the runes and the talent build setups. You know what? Real quick, before I go into the next topic about Warlock tanking, I'll probably play around with a Affliction tree. Now, I'll be honest with y'all. I haven't spec'd mainly in the Affliction tree since phase 1, and I haven't played around with a build since phase 1. So bear with me when I start putting these talent points in, but I'm gonna be honest with y'all, a lot of the Affliction talents just don't seem that useful for tanking, to be quite honest. Especially the capstone. Dark Pact, I guess, will save you a life tap, but in all honesty, it seems very, very weak. Now there are some silver linings, right? You do have Siphon Life, which now can crit if you're not using Vengeance and using Pandemic, right? And it'll leech some health back. But now that we're not dealing with mechanicals anymore, we don't have to worry about Siphon Life being immune on a lot of the trash, right? So you do have that. You do have like the micro cooldown and Amplify Curse, which will increase the effect of your Curse of Agony. That's kind of cool, I guess. They did change Nightfall, although I don't think not changed it, but they did do some sort of aura change to it. I still think it won't work with Shadow Cleave, which is kind of a shame, but it is what it is. Grim Reach is like, the increased range on everything. You do have Curse of Exhaustion, but there are way better classes to slow things. All right, so you can miss me with that. We don't even use Drain Mana, which is kind of crazy. They should have made a rune that made Drain Mana useful. I don't know what it would do, but they should have made a rune for that. But just looking at these talents individually, these talents really just don't do anything, in my opinion, for tanking. Like, most of the power, in my opinion, from the Affliction tree for tanking is really in the first two tiers. Instant Corruption, Improved Life Tap, Improved Drain Life. We don't really care about much else in this tree. So Affliction to me has just kind of always been like, since phase 2 anyway. Like, phase 1 it was cool, but phase 2, since we unlocked more talent points, it's just been like the redheaded stepchild of meta tanking. All right, so we looked at the spell effect changes and the data mine stuff. We looked at talent builds. We looked at runes. Let's move on to some of the new stuff in the Blood Moon. I think I have it saved to the Warlock stuff. So this is going to be really quick. They didn't update our trinket, unfortunately, but they did give us updated versions of the rings. So we have the Loop of the Burning Blood and Eye of the Blood Moon. One gives increased fire damage. One gives increased shadow damage. Pick your poison. Keep it moving. I wonder if they're going to treat this kind of like how they treated the PvP rings, where you can wear the lower one and you can wear the upper one. Although it does say unique equipped Blood Moon one, so that kind of probably dispels my my question right then and there. But I'm sure people are going to test it out. I like Blood Moon. Blood Moon to me is a really cool like PvP event. It's probably the most fun I've had in PvP in quite some time for a while. Because it's quick, you get in, you get out, you get in with your friends, you can kill some people, you collect coins. Collecting coins isn't really too hard. Turning in isn't really too hard. So it's not like a slog fest, right? It's just you get in, you turn in your coins, you get out, and you don't have to participate in the PvP shenanigans. If you can find some small, quiet little pocket island where you can just farm tigers, you can get blood coins that way. So there's options, but yeah, these two rings just updated, increased spell power, nothing really major to see here. Next, we have the Sunken Temple data mine stuff. So I specifically set it to the cloth area. I want to make sure I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah. So for cloth, you can see all of the cloth items here. The big piece here for healers is the Eternal Embrace of the Wind Serpent. Gives 8 stamina, 17 intellect, some nature resistance, spirit, increasing healing done by 44, which is a crazy amount. For Warlock specifically, we have the Nightmare Prophet's Vestments and we have the Malevolent Prophet's Vestments. As you can see here, this Nightmares is for Warlocks only, and the Malevolent is for the cloth wearers, so priests, mages, and Warlocks, right? And it looks like to me, for Nightmares Prophet Vestments, we as meta tanks aren't really going to have too much loot competition, because let's look at the stats. It has bonus armor, it has stamina. The equip effects are on creatures, your chance to hit with spells, and the second equip effect is increasing your spell power by 20. Not saying that other like DPS Warlocks can't use this, but if you continue down and you look at the set bonuses, the 2 set just increases your hit again, and the 3 set increases your stamina. So there's no spell power proc, there's no crit percentage. There's really nothing here that would really want that shows that you're going to be a big pumper as a DPS Warlock. So tank Warlocks are kind of uncontested with this Nightmare Vestments, and I kind of like that. On the flip side, you have the Malevolent Prophet's Vestments, where this is where you get your throughput stuff. So this has a little less stamina, but it has intellect, which the Malevolent or Nightmare doesn't. And this one has crit chance and more spell power. See, it's 23 versus 20, and it gives 1% crit instead of 1% hit. The 2 set increases your hit by 1%, and the 3 set increases your spell damage. So this is what DPS Warlocks are going to want. Maybe even some partial Warlocks who feel like they have enough defenses and they don't really need the Nightmares. I'll say this, though. I have a sneaking suspicion that they didn't separate this for no reason, right? They didn't separate this for no reason. It's kind of like, I won't say it's like using the irradiated stuff, because like irradiated gear like gives you minus stamina, which is just actively bad as a tank. Like you don't want that. So I can't say it's like the irradiated gear, but it's in the same vein. It's like irradiated was clearly made for not meta tanks, clearly made for DPS. Like Nightmare Prophet Vestments is clearly made for tank warlocks, and the Malevolent is clearly made for the DPS warlocks. Although I can't imagine, I can see meta warlocks trying to dabble into the Malevolent Prophet's vestments. I could see it. And then we got some off pieces here. We have the Fell Cloak robes, which is just a armor with a random enchant, probably like Fell Cloth robes of like Fiery Wrath or Arcane Wrath. Be careful when getting these items, because they only have armor on them, and it's like not high armor. And then it's just spell power. There's no int, there's no stamina, so there's nothing for survivability here. And then we have the garments of the Atalai Prophet, which is just intellect and spell power. Now it's 32 spell power. That's a lot of spell power. I'll give it that. It's 32 spell power, which before the set bonus for the Malevolent Prophet is more than the Malevolent Prophet, but it doesn't have crit, doesn't have stamina, doesn't have hit. It's just a fat spell power item. So there are some off items, I guess. Boot wise, again, we have more of the Nightmare Prophets boots. We have the Malevolent Prophets, and then we have the Benevolent Prophets. This is for the healer boys. And then we just have some off boots for healers, really. Stamp, int, spirit, healing done. Pretty simple. Gloves, we have 2 cloth gloves. Neither of them have stamina on them. They both have int. One is for healers, one is for DPS. The DPS one is int and then 19 spell power. The healer one is 12 int and 24 healing done. Whenever I see an item with no stamina or no bonus armor, I always kind of say, I don't know. I'm always wary of items like this. So, I mean, this is all data mined, so I don't know what actual gloves we're going to be using, but I would be cautious unless you're parsing. Like, this is kind of like Dreamweave, right? If you're trying to parse for Dreamweave and you use Dreamweave instead of like Fighter Ace gloves, that's kind of what this is. So the helms, we have a couple helms to go by. We have the Gemburst Circlet, we have the Hakai Shroud, Crown of the Dreamweaver, the Visage of the Exiled, and the Soul Catcher Crown. Hey, that has my name on it, even though it's a healer item. So right off rip, the Hakari Shroud is probably the one that's going to be for Warlock tanks. It's the only one with stamina on it, and it increases your fire damage spells. So it kind of alienates priests immediately from that scenario. I could see fire mages maybe wanting this, but why would they pick this when they can get intellect and spell power? Even though it's 7 less spell power, it's still intellect for spell crit and mana increase and spell power versus just 21 stamina. I could see that being a thing. Or they have the option of getting the Visage of the Exiled, which is still less spell power than the 29 fire damage, but it gives you hit and intellect. So I think a Warlock is pretty safe getting the Hakari Shroud uncontested, and we really don't have to worry about it not having any int or hit on it, because as we saw with the set bonus, we get 1% by itself for just having the chest, and the 2 set is another 1% hit, so that's kind of nutty. Next, we have the legs. So we have for the Rain Strider leggings, again, the Nightmare Prophet legs, so that's another uncontested piece with 21. That's a lot of spell power. I'm happy. Bonus armor, stamina, spell power. You really can't ask for much. And then we have the Benevolent, Malevolent, and then we have the off piece. The off piece has 9 stamina, 18 intellect, which is a pretty decent amount, actually. And the same amount of spell power as these. I'm guessing this is just like if you really can't get these, like if your build is running like 2 Warlock tanks, which is kind of troll, then one of them is going to have to get the Kilt of the Fallen Prophet before they get the Nightmare Prophet leggings. Kind of troll, but whatever. We're going to talk about tokens later too. But yeah, that's really it. Like I said, I like the fact that a lot of these are separated. You can clearly see which ones you're supposed to be interested in and which ones like you're kind of cheesing if you want. Going down here, we have the belt. We have the cord of the We have the cord of the Untamed, 10 stam, non-int, then 1% hit, another hit. Like this, I told you, there's a lot of hit in this phase, which is why it'll skew if you really want suppression or not. But a belt with 1% hit, 14 spell power, and then we have a healer belt, which we don't care about. Lastly, we have lastly we have the bracers. These are healing bracers, so we don't really have to worry about them. But just for shiggles, we have 7 stam, 6 int, and then healing done by 22. Easy clap. Next is leather stuff, but then I'm gonna go all the way down to the bottom. And we're gonna talk about weapons for a little bit. Weapons and trinkets. Let's see. Actually, before we get to the weapons, let's talk about these rings real quick. So we have a couple of cool rings for Warlock tanks that I'm excited to get to. The first one is this one, the Drake Claw Band of the Juggernaut. It's 60 armor, which is phenomenal, 16 stamina, and 1% hit with spells and attacks. This is probably going to be our go-to best defensive ring, right? So much armor, high stamina, and another yet 1% increased hit chance. So this is probably going to be the go-to for our defensive BIS rings, right? Easy clap, easy to see, plain as day. The offensive ring, on the other hand, is the Drake Claw Band of the Harbinger, which is intellect, spirit, no stamina, no armor, but it gives you 15 spell power. This is probably going to be something that you're interested in if you're trying to parse. So again, I don't know how hard these things hit. Like I said before, with 10 man, there is a DPS cap. It's kind of the same, not DPS. There's a damage taken cap. It's kind of the same thing in 20 man, because again, 20 is not 40. So things can only hit so hard because you only have a certain amount. Like per the norm, you only have a certain amount of healers. You only have a certain amount of tanks. You only have a certain amount of DPS to kill things. So things can only hit so hard, but all of the bosses in Sunken Temple could come out swinging and totally rock us. So who knows? But I definitely think the first thing you should be looking to get is this Drake Claw Band of the Juggernaut. It's the least contested. Only your code tanks are really going to be interested in this. And if you don't get the first one, you're shooing for the second one. So easy clap. This one is probably going to be way more contested, so I would probably just hold off a little bit before you think you can get this one. I don't know if people are going to use like Loot Council or EPGP or whatever you want to call it for 20 mans. Like 10 mans is easy just to be like, especially a 10 man on a 3-day lockout. It's easy to just put up need before greed, and move on with life. Like people did that in BFD. People are probably going to do that in Noma once the phase unlocks. So I don't know how soon people are going to do that in the Sunken Temple, but only time will tell. Moving on down, we have the neck slot. So the one that we would be interested in is, again, neck, a lot of armor, a lot of stamina, increasing chance to hit the resilience of the exiled. However, we do have a stamina spell power option this go around where we have Jindu's Lost Necklace, and we have 9 stam, 8 int, and then spell power by 12. This is a decent alternative. I would say you probably, especially if you're running Demonic Pack, you can probably look for this one first, the Jindu's Lost Locket. Even though this is going to be way more contested than the Resilience of the Exiled, and again, don't know how hard these things are hitting. But like once you start adding all of the armor bonuses up and adding all of the stamina bonuses up and start adding all of the hit bonuses up, the neck is a good pivot point to get out of hit and go for more damage. So the neck slot is a pretty easy budgeted way to get more damage into the raid. So I think Jindu's Lost Necklace will be a shoo-in, although I'm sure some guys will be like, yo, just go get the Resilience. That's going to be your best, right? Then we have the cloaks. We have the first one is this one, the Huckles. Is that how you say his name? Huckles Hex Cape, 10 int, 15 spell power. And this is really like the only one I see. I mean, I guess you could use Draper the Nightfall. This is 14 stam, 8 agility, 39 armor. It's the same armor as the Hexus cape, and it has a massive amount of stamina. Doesn't have the spell power, but this one will definitely increase your survivability, where this one will just increase your throughput. Then we have some relics, none of which are used for warlocks, and then we get to the fun part. We have some trinkets. And one thing I was kind of wary about is like this seems to be like a lot of meme items, like the Witch Doctor's Hex Stick, the Unorthodox Hex Stick, Lidra's Inanimator, the Nightmare Resonance Crystal. Even though I feel like this looks like it's like the crystal resonates in response to the nightmare. This seems like something of more importance than what it shows at face value. But these three and Atalarion's Enchanted Boulder, that seems kind of meh. I don't know what focus your spirit into favorite boulder. Enchanted with the last echoes of his soul. I have no idea what that means, but whatever it is, it's on a 15-minute cooldown, so I hope it does something cool. But let's take a look at like the actual trinkets that we would be interested in. And number one for defense, I would say this one, the Tall Blood Ritual Badge, really good defensive trinket. So when you use it, it gives you 1k armor and increases your defense skill by 20 for 20 seconds each time you take a melee or ranged damage. The bonus is reduced by 100 and your defense is reduced by 2. It's on a 2-minute cooldown. To me, this is already way better than the Weird All's trinket. The Weird All's trinket gave you a lot of armor too, and it did have the benefit of having passive dodge percentage and passive stamina, I believe. But increasing your armor but reducing your movement speed by 60% always felt kind of off to me, whereas this one, it doesn't have the passive dodge, but it does give you 1k armor and defense, so that's pretty important for increasing your avoidance and your crit reduction, even though Warlocks, we don't care about that. Meta takes care of that, and each time you're hit, it reduces the value, and it's on a way shorter cooldown. So the 2-minute cooldown is obviously, that's like retail numbers. Like normally we see for vanilla stuff, we see like 5-minute CDs, 10-minute CDs. Some trinkets have 30-minute CDs. 2 minutes is kind of not, it's not even kind of, it's just not commonplace. So I'm happy to see that. And then we have the DPS one, which we have Atala's Ritual Charm. I don't know if these two say unique. I think they might be unique. Like you can't use 2 ritual charms. Like you have to use the ritual charm and then something else. Like you probably can have the ritual badge and the ritual charm, but not 2 charms or 2 badges. But this one on use increases your spell damage by 96 and your healing by 192. That's crazy. And every time you cast a spell, the bonuses are reduced. 2-minute cooldown. So these two are probably like the go-to ones. And it seems like every type of damage dealer has a version of this. Like you see the Ritual Medallion is for melee and range DPS. So that's pretty cool. And then we have a Warlock only trinket, whereas it increases the damage of your next non-channeled affliction base damage over time spell by 100. And this is interesting. At face value, I remember looking at this trinket and saying it was trash because it only increases the next spell. It's on a 5-minute CD and it's only affliction spell. So corruption, curse of agony. I don't think this will work with Drain Life, even if you're using Master Channeler, because I still think it's considered a channel, even though it's really not. But only time will tell. But yeah, corruption, Drain Life, Curse of Doom, like things like that. So best case scenario, in my opinion, I think you use this with either corruption or Curse of Agony. Probably Curse of Agony, I would say. But to me, this really isn't that great a trinket for meta tanks. It might be a good trinket somewhere else, but this is kind of a really weak effect, especially on a 5-minute CD. That's kind of nutty. Like where you have like, how does this compare to like the Blood Ritual Badge or the Blood Ritual Charm? It doesn't. That's the answer. So yeah, you have that. And then you have the Chain Essence of Aranicus. This is 10 stamina, 10 nature damage, and then on use that just does an AoE Poison Nova and puts a doubt on everybody. It ticks every 5 seconds for 45 seconds, so it's 9 ticks. This is on the 10-minute cooldown. This is, I guess, is a good stamina stick and a good nature resist stick. I'm sure there's going to be ample amounts of nature resist in Sunken Temple, but this is also kind of a weird trinket because this is really meant, in my opinion, for like AoE tanking. I don't know if you would really use this trinket on like bosses when you like, especially if you have access to one of these other trinkets, right? The Ritual Badge or the Ritual Charm. So, but I mean, it's there. It's the only trinket here currently with stamina on it. Stamina is good for tanking, so easy clap. And then the last trinket I want to talk about is the Breath of the Beast. This just increases your hit by 1%. So this is yet another 1% hit source. So what is that? We have this trinket. We have the Nightmare Chest for Warlocks. That's 1%. The 2 set also gives 1%. There was another item that gave 1%. There was, here we go. The tank neck gives 1% hit. So there's a lot of places to get hit. The ring gives 1% hit. So that's what I meant when I was talking about the talents, that you probably don't have to take suppression because there's a lot of hit sources in this raid. We just sounded off 5, right? So hit is going to be, I won't say in abundance, but it'll be there. It's not going to be few and far between. I do want to scroll up real quick and see if I can find the weapons. I don't know why I can't find the weapons. We have gloves, mail. I could have swore they had the weapons here, but maybe they don't. Maybe it's at the top. I'm tripping. Maybe it's at the top. They are at the top. So these are all the two-handed stuff. We're gonna go straight for the caster boy stuff. This is a healer neck. This is a healer staff, so we don't have to worry about the restorative rod. The ancient divining rod is not a healer staff either. That's a druid staff. Strength, agility, stamina. That's a little bit of stamina for epic level 50 staff. That's interesting. But then, pardon me. But then we have the big boy. We have the Spire of Hakari Warship. This is probably going to be on every Warlock, Mage, Shadow Priest, all the casters' lists. 14 Stam, 14 Intellect, 13 Spirit. It gives you 19 spell power and a 2% increased crit strike chance. Really powerful. Really, really powerful. I would say, before I used to be able to say, if this was old style vanilla rules, that, hey, you can probably, like if your guild is running like a prio or something like that, you can probably prio this to like mages, but now that warlocks have a data mine rune that allow their dots to crit, shadow priests have a data mine rune that allow their dots to crit, this is kind of like equal prio. So this is a really, really good staff. This will probably be on our best list in some capacity, I would imagine, because it's really good stats, has stamina, has intellect, and has spell power, and 2% crit. So it immediately eclipses a lot of the preceding weapons that we got from Nomer and BFD. So this is the two-handed option, and then we're going to go to the one-handers. And before I get to the spell stuff, let's just appreciate a lot of the cool, one-handed swords and stuff that, the melee boys are going to get. The Vile Blade of the Wretched looks pretty cool, corrupts the target and increases your hit. More hit. See that? Look at that. More hit. We have Dragon's Cry, which has a chance to hit to call a dragon to help you out. It's a one-handed sword. I like, also one more thing, I like that all of these are one-handers and not main hands. That just gives way more flexibility. We have the Degraded Dire Nail, which is increased crit chance and stamina. So that's pretty dope. Then we have the main hand stuff, but it's it's a lot less than the one hand stuff, right? You have let's see, we have 5, 10, 12 one hand stuff, and then we have 6 main hand stuff. So I like that. But looking at the main hand stuff, pardon me, we got a couple options for the Warlock boys. So the first one we have is Hubris, Bandit of the Brander, 12 int, 11 intellect, and increase your spell power by 20. Really good staff. Really good dagger. Easy clap. Then we have Modus Carcoon. This is 100 armor, 12 stamina, increasing your fire damage damage done by your fire spells by 23. This is more tailored for warlocks. It's a lot faster, so you can definitely melee weave with this one than you can with the 1.8. So you can melee weave it in between your Searing Pain cast. It gives you a lot of armor. It gives you the same stamina as the other one, no intellect, but increasing your fire spell. So again, it shortens the pool on who would want this, but really it's still just going to be, it really just excludes shadow priests, right? Because mages are primarily fire, warlocks are primarily destruction. So this is going to be on a lot of people's best list. I would say the only thing that kind of makes it, if you're a warlock tank and you want to sway things your way for your loot council, just tell them that it has armor and has stamina with no intellect, right? And the trade-off here is, if you're trying to argue your case with a DPS class, or you're trying to argue your case with an officer, right? You say the increased 3 spell power is not worth more than 11 intellect. That's the trade-off here. That's the only difference between them. They have the same amount of stamina. This one has armor, which is utterly useless to another caster DPS, but it's really good for a caster tank that has a big modifier, a 500% armor modifier on one of their forms. And this one comes with 11 intellect. This one has no intellect. So you can definitely state your case for the Modus Carcoon. I'm going to look at it and see how it looks. I want to see the model. Oh, it looks kind of dope, too. It looks like that, what was that mage, the mage artifact, Philoma Lorn. That's what it kind of looks like to me. Kind of reminds me of that, or one of the skins. But, yeah. Actually, while we're here, let's see what this one looks like real quick. Oh, that looks like dirt. That's just a little stick, a little fire stick. Oh, I'm glad I play Warlock Tank now. Jesus. But then looking at some of the other items, now that we've covered the epics, The mace we can't use because Warlock can't use maces, and it's a healing mace anyway, so who cares? The fist weapon is a fist weapon. You know what that is. This is a healing dagger, sacrificial dream dagger, so you don't want to take that from healers. And then the next real spellcaster item is an item we can't use. It's a mace. It's a one-hand madness of the avatar. So really only options really for like bis weapons is the Modus Carcoon or the Hubris, the Bandit Brander. And of course, with one-handers, you got to look at the offhands. So we're going to go ahead and go down to the offhands. Actually, I don't even think there are. Didn't data mine any offhands. But that's okay. You know why that's okay? Because we get a new rank of Firestone. So we can just kind of equip our Firestone and call it a day. So I like it. But that's really it for the weapons. I don't really have to go over the range weapons. I went over the cloth armor. So yeah, we're kind of lit here. Moving on. So this is full screen this pup. This is, clips that we got from the video. And one thing I do want to scroll down to is this right here. This screenshot right here. So this is a preview of the loot. These items were not on the list we just saw data mined. I'm sure I could find a page that has all this stuff, but these items don't really apply to us. So we have, the Drakestone one does. It does increase your shadow damage and your arcane damage and your flat spell power. I would say this is better for probably someone else, not us, not meta warlocks. But then you look at the Atali blood, Atali. I don't know why I said that weird. But anyway, you look at the blood icon, and you see and you notice that it now has class specific requirements to it. So, I mean, just the offset of this is all of these classes don't wear cloth, so that leads me to allude that the other token, because there has to be another token, will just include all of the cloth classes. So the priests, warlocks, mages, and I think that's it, right? That's the only other classes left, because if warrior, paladin, hunter, rogue, and shaman are in one, druids, warlocks, priests, mages, they will share another rune. And on one hand, I get it, because you don't want to go into a 20-man, right, and have every single person rolling on the same token, right? You would have to drastically increase the drop rate on said token because everyone wants the same thing. But if you split them, it helps remove a lot of the crab in a barrel competition, right? Even though it's kind of weird that they just put all of the cloth wares and the druids on one token, and then all of the leather wares minus the druids on leather plus wares minus the druids on the other token, because I still feel like people are going to be rolling for the same thing. But again, you split it down the middle, it helps even things out a little bit. So that's another thing I want to bring up here. Let me see. Of course, we get some new effects for the epics. They want to show off that, and some of the new like meme items, right? And then we look at the raid release schedule. So we're going back to the traditional Tuesday reset lockout. So it's going to be 1 week. Sunken Temple will be available day one. So that means April 4th, it'll be open. And of course, that's going to mean that those who want to get in there must level really quickly and try to get that first lockout in. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to be a part of that crew. I might level with a buddy or with a guildie, and we're going to try to truck all the way through and then try to get our first, our way into that first lockout. So that might be a thing, but who knows? We'll see. Some people like that play style. I haven't been a part of the first lockout for Nomer or BFD, and I've been just fine on the gear level. So like I've gotten near BIS, maybe minus one to 3 pieces, both phases, without having to go to the first lockout. So I imagine I'll probably be the same here, even though I suspect that this phase might be a little longer, or might feel a little longer, because we're going to be working off of a 7-day lockout instead of a 3-day lockout, but who knows? But that's it for that. Let's move on. Whoop, dropped my phone. Hold on. Okay. Now we get to some interesting stuff. So we have the data mined, again, not official, just data mined Dark Moon cards. Hold on one second. I want to see if I can get more on this screen here. Okay. So yes, we're getting Dark Moon cards, and to be quite honest with you, I kind of forgot Dark Moon cards even existed in vanilla. But here we have some new ones. We have Dark Moon card Overgrowth, Decay, Sandstorm, and Torment, and I do suspect that Sandstorm is going to be the one that we use. So let's take a look. Equip chance on spells and attacks have a chance to summon a sandstorm that circles you, dealing nature damage to targets it passes through. Basically, just kind of giving you a nature damage AOE aura. Like, I don't know the efficacy of this trinket. Like, I don't know how how great it's gonna be comparative to like Sunken Temple trinkets, because it has no stats, has no stamina, it has no spell power, it has no crit, it has nothing on it. It's just a proc that does damage. So, and it's not even fire damage. So I don't know how good this is going to be by comparison of the other Sunken Temple trinkets, but on paper it does look pretty good. Thorns effects, especially Thorns effects that don't require, I shouldn't call it Thorns effects, let's call it aura effect. Aura effects that just pulse AoE tend to be really good for tanks, because they tend to be tanking a lot of things at the time. So, especially in dungeons. So I think this is probably going to be the one for like dungeon spamming, if anything, right? But then we have some other interesting options, right? So we have the Decay one, where spells and attacks sometimes leech health from the target. This is another good one for like single target thinking. Applying a stack of Decay. When Decay reaches 5 stacks, the target takes 0 damage. That's funny, 0 damage. I'm sure there's a damage modifier here. They just haven't put it in here, but it takes damage, basically. This is like a good single target one, like, because obviously we can get a lot of Searing Pains out, a lot of chances to stack up this Decay. So, and get some leech back. I'm not mad at that. Then we have Torment. Gives the wearer a chance on attack to cast Torment at their target, causing them to wander in suffering for 3 seconds. I don't know what wander in suffering means. I don't know if that's a fear, if that's a horrify. Probably sounds like a horrify effect. I don't really know if that's going to be good, because generally speaking, tanks don't want to just randomly fear things. That seems kind of weird. And then we have Overgrowth, which I suspect is like the healer one. Chance on successful heal to restore energy, 8 energy, 1% mana, or 4 rage. Yeah, that's like healer stuff. So yeah, all in all, I think the Sandstorm one is going to be like the dungeon spam one. If you can build this deck, if you're lucky enough to get this card, or if you're rich enough to buy this card, the Sandstorm one is good for tanking. The Dark card Decay is good for single target tanking and just single target DPS probably. So we'll see. But yeah, Dark Moon cards are back. Let's see. And then we have profession updates. So professions, in my opinion, were a point of contention, especially like when you look at, even in phase 1, right? Because I saw a lot of people, not necessarily people that I knew, just like meandering when I'm looking through Discords, or if I'm in trade or an LFG looking for a group, and I just see people talking, having random conversations about it. Professions, like, some people get it right away. They make the plays, farm the resources, and watch the guides, and just really go get their items pretty quickly, and then are able to capitalize on the market for people trying to gear up. And some people hate it. Some people hate like gold sinks being professions, and like kind of being gatekept. If you don't have this item, then don't come to my raid. Or maybe guilds putting requirements on their raiders to say, hey, you need to make this helm or this item or this boots or this ring by a certain amount, by a certain time frame, or you can't raid. Like, so professions have been a point of contention. I've liked the professions, so I made the Void Touch boots. I made the helm for my Warlock. I made the gloves for my Warrior and my Druid. I made the epic Nomargon helm for my Warrior. So, and they've been a pretty good sort. Like, after you painstakingly spend all that gold on the recipe and the mats and stuff, reselling like the Grimy Crystal stuff has been a pretty good gold sell. I mean, not now, not anymore. Like, the prices have tanked, obviously, because the phase is coming out. But yeah, but let's take a quick gander at some of the profession update items. So we have shoulders here. I'm looking at, just strictly talking about for Warlock boys. Shoulder pads of the Deranged, 104 bonus armor, 15 stamina, 13 int. Increases, gives you 13 spell damage, and damaging spells have a chance to increase your spell damage by 30 and your dodge chance by 2%. This has no effect outside of areas under the influence of the nightmare. And I was a little confused at what that part meant. I'm guessing it means that you have to be in the nightmare incursion for this effect to work. which is kind of weird that they would do that. But then again, I don't know if Sunken Temple falls under that parameter, right? So Sunken Temple could be deemed under the influence of the nightmare. This effect has no effect outside of areas under the nightmare. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. So I feel like they wouldn't implement a item like this in a new raid that kind of gives off the nightmare feel, and then say, oh, you can't use this item in raid, because it then kind of defeats the purpose of even trying to get this item, right? Like, you're gonna want to use this item in where the hardest content is. So that's how I look at this. But overall, just looking at the item at face value, pretty good item. It has everything we want: bonus armor, decent amount of stamina, some intellect, a lot of spell power, and the equip effect gives you a chance to get another 30 spell damage and 2% dodge. You cannot be mad at that. Real quick, I guess I'll go over this. This is not Warlock centric, but this does pertain to us in some way. So professions will be uncapped. I think that was pretty much expected, and the profession specs will be available. So like Potion Master and Transmutation Master and all that good stuff. Because I never played vanilla, I don't know if there's a special tailoring profession in vanilla. Like in TBC, there's like, what is it, like dark weave embroidery, and then there's like light weave embroidery. Well, I think that was Wrath, actually, not TBC, but there you get it. There's those tailoring specializations. I don't know if that's in vanilla. I never played vanilla, so I'm guessing it started somewhere, and I guess it would start in vanilla. And I was a druid in TBC, so I never leveled tailoring. So we shall see. But yeah, specializations are back in effect. New quest chain taking you into the Nightmare and Sunken Temple raid. So this statement alone makes me feel like that these items are going to be these items that denote has no effect outside of areas under the influence of the Nightmare. This statement makes me feel like that these items are actually going to be able to be used in Sunken Temple. I would imagine. Like, this is not silly like that. So, and there we have it. Let me double check to see if there's anything else I would want to go over. I think we covered damn near everything. Also gonna increase this here a little bit. But I think we covered pretty much everything. Looks like Wowhead has a rune counter, so they're data mining all of the runes here. Looks like pretty much they've data mined almost everything. We've got 18 out of 24 for Warlock, 19 out of 25 for Shaman. There's 26 runes, jeez. 18 out of 24 for Warrior. And then they have a phase 3 counter, so I'm excited for phase 3. I can't wait. I can't wait to have my Felguard. I can't wait to, get all the new runes and see Sunken Temple and do all that good stuff. I guess, wait a minute. I guess I didn't look at the Nightmare Incursions loot. Let's see. Oh yeah, I definitely didn't look at this. Yeah, let's review this right quick. It's gonna be light. All right, dream themed items. So we have the Nightmare Focus Staff, a whopping 30 stamina and 26 intellect. That is a phenomenal amount of both of those stats. And it gives you 29 spell power. Amazing. I will say this, and this is my fault, and I'm going to have to do way more research on this. But in that video, I didn't really pay too much attention to the Nightmare Incursions. But just looking at that staff, I haven't even gotten to anything else. Looking at that staff, I need to pay more attention, evidently. Let's look at some of these items. We have a trinket. Restores 150 health and mana. Okay, that's like a alt/leveling trinket. We have this is like the PvP sets that they were talking about in the video. And then we have Roar of the Dream, a ring. 14 stamina. Your harmful spells have a chance to increase your spell damage by 66. That is a phenomenal ring. That's a crazy amount of spell power. For a ring proc, 66? Nutty. That's probably going to be something, and it has a lot of stamina on it too. So it's probably going to be something that Warlock tanks are definitely going to be looking for. Side note, Warlock tanks should be salivating right now because of all this stuff. It's not really even a side note, but a PS. Warlock tanks should be salivating over the amount of armor, stamina, spell power procs, hit. There's so much thing that just caters to us that I can't wait. But going back into the Nightmare Incursions item. So yes, we have the Nightmare Focus Staff, which is a giga item. We have the Roar of the Guardian, which looks like it's a physical damage thing. So yeah, this is a trinket, 10 stamina. Increase your melee and ranged attack power by 70 for 20 seconds, 5-minute cooldown. That's more in line with what I expect with a vanilla style trinket. Like the 5-minute CD makes sense. 10 stamina makes sense. The effect makes sense. Yeah, that seems to be more vanilla-esque. We have Roar of the Grove, which is 10 stamina also, but invoke the power of the dream. Invoke the power of the dream lasting 15 seconds, and while standing in the circle, you gain 120 healing power. That's a lot of healing power, but it comes at the caveat of you having to stand still. So you have to make sure that you can actually stand still for at least 15 seconds to maximize this effect. Pretty dope, though. We have a ring, which is 12 stamina, some spirit, and some arcane resist, and you can enter the dream of the targeted friend for 1 hour. That's funny. I wonder what that means. Some of y'all don't want to look inside your head, so I'll keep that to myself. We have the super ring, the Roar of the Dream we just went over, 14 stamp, 66 spell power proc, crazy. Seeds of Renewal, chance to embed a seed into the enemy humanoid, beast, or dragonkin hit by abilities if the creature is slain within 30 seconds. A healing blossom will grow from its corpse. Interesting. This seems like a PvP / there's a lot of ads type deal item. Interesting. I wonder what the blossom does. Let's see if we can find a spell effect for it. I don't know if they have it, but we'll find out. We looked at Felguard, right? So let's take a look. Let's see. Used by Season Renewal, modified by Noxious Breath. What is Noxious Breath and who does that come from? There's no comments on it. Yeah, doesn't really have any spell effects on it, so I guess we can chalk that up to it's not ready yet. And then let's see. Let's look at the cloth items because we're still trying to keep it Warlock focused. So we have the Morethra's Inheritance, cloth chest, 20 stam, some arcane and nature resist. Use puts an enemy to sleep for 30 seconds. Any damage caused will awaken. Oh, so it's just like a hibernate, basically. A hibernate that you can use on any target on a 15-minute cooldown. It's a pretty odd item. There's no int on it. There's no spell power on it. There's just resistances on it. I guess that's okay, but not an item that I would vie for. Then we have Anguish of the Dream, increasing your damage or healing of your next attack, ability, or spell by 40 when you kill a target that gives experience or honor. Interesting. This is a cool leveling item. This is actually be really good in like dungeons, right? Because a 40 hit on your next, like this is good. This is cool. This is dope. This is really good. I don't even have to explain it. And then this one does kind of the opposite. It gives you health and mana when you kill something. Okay, so another leveling item. Pretty dope. So we got plate. We got more plate. We got mail, more mail, leather, more leather, and cloth. All right. And a little bit of a difference to the Nightmare Vestments and the Malevolent. This is just for every cloth wearer. This isn't separated by what you do. This is just all cloth. And this looks like this is going to be the PvP set because at first glance I see there's a lot of stamina on each of these items. The set bonus is stamina on each of these items. And it just gives you raw spell power for raw damage. So no hit on it though. Oh, nope, there's crit, not hit. There's crit on the cloth chest and crit on the cloth helm, but it's just raw damage. Okay, not mad at it. And then this looks like healer stuff because it's only specific to priests and mages. So there you have it. Interesting. And I think that's it for like the Warlock centric stuff. Obviously, there's other stuff in Phase 3 that I got announced that I didn't go over. But none of that stuff is like Warlock centric. That's just like anybody can look it up. And then I would just be reading Wowhead to you when you can go read that yourself. I don't know if you want to sit here and listen to me read Wowhead. So I think that's it for the video, guys. I'm happy to do this. I can't wait for Phase 3 to come out. If you stuck with me through the video or the stream, I should say, I appreciate it. If you catch this on a watch back when I post it, I appreciate you. Consider liking and subscribing if you want to see more. Other than that, y'all been great. I've been Soul and I'm out. Peace.